Virtually Inspired, the show that is all about helping you up your game when it comes to virtual learning experiences. Let's change the landscape of virtual from awful to awesome. My name is Melissa Dinwiddie, and I help innovative companies grow sales, retain customers, not companies, retain customers and talent with creative virtual experiences, because I infuse connection, joy, and delight into virtual trainings and events. So welcome. Today's guest is Alison Gitelson of Can Be Done. Alison works with leaders and teams to unlock human ability, to envision, strategize, and move towards a better, more human and sustainable way of doing business in a complex world. And don't we all need that? Alison is coming to us from South Africa today, and I am so delighted to bring her on the show. Welcome, Alison.
Thank you. Great to be here.
So happy to have you. So tell me, Alison, how did you get started doing what you're doing? And tell me a little bit about what it is that you do.
Sure. We need the short version of this because this is my fourth career. I started life as career life as an optometrist. And I found my way into facilitation. So initially in this fourth career, this phase, Alison as Can Be Done, I initially was consulting and coaching. And coaching led to being asked to coach some management teams. So that was effectively team coaching. And I realized that I enjoyed working with groups, which I hadn't expected. And I don't even remember quite how I came across my first dialogue facilitation tool. But definitely that was my entrance into facilitation, was being able to help people create powerful dialogue. So sitting there, having a conversation, but amazing things were coming out of that. People were shifting in their perspective. They were listening to each other. They were finding ideas that they didn't realize they had inside of themselves, finding their tacit knowledge, their tacit creativity, and the effort that people put in felt just like fun. And yet what came out of it was huge. It was as though they'd spent 2 days working together, and it was a few hours worth of dialogue that had created that. So I got really excited about what could be possible with groups of people. And I started incorporating what I called conversations that matter into work that I did, into training work, into companies where I was being asked to help them to shift. And maybe I was coaching the head of the division or the department, and then we would create a conversation with everybody and see what we could generate from that. And whilst I was involved with bringing dialogue in, then I started looking for other opportunities and other facilitation tools that would help me. And a big area that I then moved into was using applied improvisation, which of course you're very familiar with, and how we connected originally. And I was drawn into some facilitation that someone else was doing. I found it a little bit scary at first, but what I also found was that I shifted so much in the time that I was playing these activities with her leading us. And so I pushed myself to do more and more of it, to get more comfortable with it, and eventually trained as a strategic narrative embodiment facilitator, which incorporates applied improvisation, narrative, dialogue, etc., into a living process, a living way of helping people to connect, to understand themselves, to understand each other, to shift dynamics, to shift perception, and therefore to shift behaviors.
Wow, what a great story. 4 careers and from an optometrist to doing this all the way to applied improvisation. Amazing.
Yeah,
Thank you for sharing.
via the IT industry, via the transformation industry. So
Wow.
there's a thread throughout. Human behavior is a central element to everything that I do. Understanding human behavior and help through that understanding, helping people to be able to be more, have more, see more of what they're wanting. So in optometry, obviously, it had to do with vision, physical vision.
Physical
Now
vision.
it often has to do with more of a figurative vision.
I love it. Well, and to that end, you have brought some activities
Yes.
to share having to do with the initial, typically the initial part of any kind of a session that you're leading with people.
So maybe we can do one or two and then talk a little bit about the different reasons that we would be doing check-ins and what we might be achieving with them, and why I get so passionate about how important this tiny little thing is that you do at the beginning, and that it can be done at the beginning of anything where a group of people come together. So you were speaking in the introduction about your focus on learning in a virtual environment and bringing excitement and connection into virtual learning. And the check-ins obviously have a huge role to play in that. But they also have a role to play for a manager who's bringing their team together for a meeting on a daily basis, on a weekly basis. And funnily enough, I did not used to use check-ins. I didn't know the importance of check-ins. When I first started consulting in the business world, I just we'd have people together and we would get going with what we were doing. We were there to work and now jump in as quickly as possible. And one of my clients, an exec who I was coaching for her executive role, but she had learned her meeting facilitation from other mentors, and she kept talking about the check-in at the beginning. I don't know what she's talking about. That's just a waste of time. But I don't remember what it was that first triggered me to explore check-ins. I can't remember that. However, once I did, I realized that tiny little piece sets the tone for the rest of what you're going to do.
Absolutely.
And especially in this virtual environment, people keep saying to me, oh, but we can't connect the way we did when we were all in the office together. Because even those people who are back partly in the office, it's often in a hybrid environment. I said to them, no ways, that cannot be the case. Because people like Melissa, who I connect with across the world, and I have been doing since 2015, thereabouts. I've been working online. I have lots of people that I've worked with either a few times or on a very regular basis. And all of them I have done work with such that we feel a strong connection. We trust each other. We understand each other. We could walk into a room together and connect immediately, and we connect online. And yet most of those people I've never met in a physical room.
Absolutely.
So let's start in a very simple way, and just think about how you are feeling today. And if you stop, breathe, and just give yourself a moment to connect with how you are feeling today. And then maybe just with one word. What's the one word that comes to you that you could share that in some way represents how you're feeling today?
Optimistic.
Lovely. Thank you. And of course, I would share as well, So I'm feeling excited for this new format of interview in the way that you do it. So my one word is excitement.
Lovely.
And I might not say, could you share with one word? I might say, could you just show me with your upper body, the part of you that's within the camera? Just allow your upper body to show me how you're feeling today. And we'll sort of count 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and then show me and just freeze it for a moment so we can all have an opportunity to look around and see each other. So let's just see how we're feeling. And 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Lovely. Thank you. And saying thank you and acknowledging everybody is part of the check-in. As a facilitator, that's part of our role, to acknowledge everybody, to help everybody feel accepted. And sometimes in check-ins, if we're going around sort of a virtual circle, I will ask everybody else to say thank you as each person shares whatever we're sharing, just simply to say thank you. And maybe one more way, because all we're doing right now is 3 different ways, as many possibilities, but 3 different ways of sharing how we're feeling. So a third one might be to create a sound ball. And I know you'll be familiar with a sound ball, but if we had a bigger circle, saying for everybody, what you're going to do is to create your own sound ball. And you will do this silently. So you will mime the creation of that ball. And it could be something big, it could be something small. It's whatever you want that ball to be. And then after you've created the ball, you are going to throw it to somebody. And if we're in a room, we keep an eye on each other and we would just throw it. But in a virtual environment like this, where it's much more difficult to make eye contact, we're just going to say the person's name before we throw it so they can make sure that they are watching. As you throw it with a sound, any sound that you want to have go with it. And the person who you've named, they need to catch the same ball. So the big ball, it's a little ball, and with the same sound that it came with. So, and I will start us off. And so the extra little element to this is that the ball that we create, the type of ball we create and the sound that we send it with is going to represent how we're feeling. So again, just breathe and think about how we're feeling. And I will start us off as an example. Melissa. Whee!
Whee!
And now you can recreate your own sound ball.
Alison.
Oh! Oh! Thank you.
Thank
then
you.
we would carry on and we would pass it around the room, which of course has an added benefit that a check-in of that nature can also then be repurposed, and anybody can use it for a quick lifter of energy in the middle of a session that's getting a little bit heavy, or perhaps the thinking has got stuck. So people are struggling to solve a problem, and to break that and bring some fresh energy in and to allow creativity to return, to create sound balls and throw them around the room And they then don't need to represent the way you're feeling. They're just whatever you want to create in that moment. So there we have the simple thing of checking how everybody is feeling, either as a word, a one-word response, or it could be 2-3 words, whatever you choose to set as a parameter. We've done it using our upper body without words and silent, and we've done it using our body and sound with the sound ball.
I love it. Those are really, really wonderful, Alison. You know, I've done sound ball. I've done variations on all of these before, and I've done sound ball so frequently. I mean, that's such a foundational activity in both the performing improv world and the applied improv world. But I've never done it with the added layer of making that sound represent how you feel. And I really like that. That's really interesting and fun. And what another variation that I've done that is kind of a combination of some of the activities that you shared is making a sound and movement combination that expresses how you feel right in this moment. And then everybody in the room mimics that.
Yes.
And it's what I've noticed is that it's often kind of challenging to some groups are a little bit reluctant to do the mimicking part. But what I love about all of these activities is that they're so wonderful for empathy and for people really opening people's eyes to seeing how everybody else in the room is feeling, and that people's experiences are different. Yes. We walk around in our own world, not realizing, we just don't think about how our experience is different from everybody else's experience. We're so in our own experience. Yes. And these types of check-in activities are so powerful because they help us get out of that sort of solipsistic mode of, this is reality because it's my reality, because we can really see, and especially if we are mimicking other people, to really take on physically in our bodies.
Yeah.
That, oh, this is somebody else's reality. It's very different from mine. And also we get to see where we're similar too.
And that mimicking is a real bodily display of acceptance. And for me, one of the key things in a check-in is that it's building psychological safety. So psychological safety being, by definition, there's so many definitions, but the simple one for me is where there's psychological safety, a person is going to feel safe and comfortable to participate fully, to contribute, to experiment, to try doing things differently, and to ask for help when they need help as well. Another really important aspect in business that is often forgotten, that if we don't ask for help, we in fact become weaker and not stronger. It enables vulnerability, which we know also is so important in building trust, and trust being the foundation of any group of people being able to work together to cooperate or to collaborate for generating something. So for me, the really important thing with check-ins is that they should be part of the layers that create psychological safety for a group, whether they are meeting for 15 minutes for a stand-up 3 times a week, or whether they are there for a whole day's worth of workshop. The check-ins can be really, really short, like all the ones we did would be very quick. Maybe the sound wall would take a touch longer, but generally those are all very short, so they can be done even when you're only meeting for 15 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
And part of that feeling safe is that I've been accepted no matter what I said. I've never had the experience of somebody saying something that would be absolutely outrageous, that perhaps would be questionable, that we would want to accept. I've never experienced that. So for me, in my experience from a wide variety of groups, it's anything that's being shared, there would be no reason why we wouldn't accept it. And having what you spoke about, mimicking back, and sometimes that's done with words as well. If somebody said excitement, then everyone else says excitement.
Mm-hmm.
I, as a facilitator, very often do mimic back the one-word responses. It's a way of saying, I accept you. If I say it back to you, I must be accepting it because I'm prepared to use either the movement or the voice. And the catching of the sound ball itself is already an acceptance that I've caught what you have sent. And this has reminded me, going back to earlier this year when the Ukraine-Russian war began, I had one or two people in some of the groups that I was working with who are either in Ukraine or in Russia, or in the environs of the war. And ahead of the first time that any of those people were going to be in a group with me, I was thinking, I wonder how this is going to work. And thinking about what should I do? What might I need to do? And I hadn't got a definitive answer. I just had kind of opened my mind to the possibilities that there might be some difficulties. And I found, in fact, it was the check-in that resolved the problem, because when we checked in, it was always one individual in a group who was from more directly the area in combat or being affected very directly by it. And when I went around doing the check-in, they indicated some sort of discomfort and just said, I hear you. And we understand where you are. We try to understand where you are. And remember, we have a part of our agreement, because these were existing groups, so we already had our working agreements. Part of our agreement is take care of yourself. So I understand if there's something that you can't participate in. And that was enough, because from then onwards, you could see them shift into being present in this group, in the activities we were doing. Those happened to be leadership development programs. And for the rest of the session, they were totally absorbed. I think to some extent it gave them a break from what was going on in the outside world. But they were able to fully experience and benefit from the session, which would not have been the case if they couldn't become completely present with it.
Yeah.
And if there was awkwardness from people, like, should I raise it? Should I ask a question? So we created a level playing field. Everybody shared how they were feeling that day. I can't even remember which exercise I used. And now we know. Now we accept everybody where they're from.
Yeah.
Because the other thing that worries me a lot with groups is that if somebody is in a bad space and you haven't given the opportunity for that to be indicated early on, they may have some strange responses to some of the things that are being discussed that day in a meeting or a learning activity, if you're in a learning session. And now people know, well, what's going on here? Or they judge negatively. They assume something worse than what it is. If we know already that somebody's not in a great space, then if something happens, well, that's fine. I understand.
Yeah.
Something happening. No problem.
Yeah, you bring up such a good point. And it's really creating that space. And, it makes me think about, I was actually leading a program during right over the period of time when the insurgency happened, over January 6th insurgency. And needless to say, there were a lot of feelings. And I think it was the day after when I was leading whatever the next session was. And, I couldn't go into that. And I had a regular check-in scheduled, but I couldn't go into the session without addressing that there were a lot of feelings in the room. And so I always leave time at the beginning of the session for sort of an unofficial start. And so what I did was, and I like to do this in general, I mean, especially whenever there's anything up in the world, I invited people to share. I said, I know there's a lot of things happening in the world right now. I invited people to share in the chat 3 words that expressed how they were feeling right now. Any 3 adjectives, any 3 words. And I acknowledged that those 3 words might be very contradictory to each other. They could be any 3 words. And then we talked for a few minutes about, and people filled up the chat with their 3 words, and then we talked for a few minutes. And just giving people a little bit of space. They didn't need an hour.
Exactly.
They just needed a little bit of space to acknowledge that, yes, we're feeling weird.
Yes.
And then we could transition into our regular check-in, having allowed some of those feelings out, because it was too weird to go into the session without it, because we are feeling beings that think. We are not thinking beings that feel.
And if we ignore those feelings and we suppress that, it's going to be there. It's bubbling under the surface, and it prevents people from being present. What you're speaking about reminded me of a check-in that I did one day with a group that I'd been asked to work with, who had some problems in the dynamics, some conflict, unresolved. They also didn't know how to have constructive disagreements. So I knew that we might have some things happening there, and we were going to be working with them. I didn't want that getting in the way of us getting started, because there were things we needed to do in the beginning, like putting together an agreement of how we would work and so on. Also, it was early on in lockdown, at the beginning of the pandemic. So people were working from home. They were working in a virtual environment that they'd never worked in before. There were all sorts of things that were unsettling. And I wanted some balance. So the other thing with the check-in is the opportunity to lead to where the topic's going to go, where the focus of the session's going to be, or to create the type of tone that one wants for the session. And so what I did with that group was I asked them to grab a piece of paper, or 2 pieces of paper, one they could cut in half, or 2 pieces. And I said to them, please think about what is one thing that's bothering you at the moment, something that's in your head, and just draw anything that represents that for you. So should we do it quickly? We've got a couple of minutes. We can start. Have you got anything you can draw with?
Yeah.
Okay. So 1 piece of paper and just any representation of something that is in some way bothering you.
No, I'm thinking. Okay.
And then the second piece of paper, think about something that you are very happy about or very grateful for. And draw something that represents that.
Okay.
Okay. And then, and I'm going to speed this up a little bit, but I asked everybody to show us the picture, the first picture, the thing that's bothering them. And so we held that up and we looked at all of them, and everybody have a chance to see that. And we didn't need to discuss what it was. We just looked at everybody's. And then I said, please take that and fold it up. And then go to the door of the room you're in, or something that creates your sort of boundary of the space you're in, and just store it there.
Okay.
Okay, and so
right over here.
Yeah. And now we've put it aside for the moment. We will pick it up again later. And then your other picture, let's just have a look at the thing that you're excited about or that you enjoy. That looks lovely. Thank you. And now put that somewhere where you will see it, where it will remind you of what you are happy about, what you're grateful for whenever you see it.
All right, I'm getting a Post-it out so I can put it on my computer monitor.
And so that's what we did, to set the tone and to open the space for what we're doing.
Lovely. Wow. I like that. You know, one of the things I really enjoy about that is it's analog, and it's getting people to do something that pulls their eyes away from the screen for a moment, and is using analog tools.
Yes.
I really like that a lot. And also, I like anything that gets people to draw.
And it reminds us that just because we're using screens, we have not lost paper and pen.
That's right.
And that it's still shareable.
That's right. Absolutely.
You can share something in a screen.
Yes. Yes. We don't have to do everything with whiteboards. We can, you know, with digital whiteboards, we can actually use pens and paper and still share them. Yeah. That's really lovely.
For me, the important things are that we're creating the safety and even flat playing field. I don't get people to share their titles or their job descriptions, because that's all hierarchical. I want everybody to work in the space as equivalent people, bringing their own strengths to the space, and their own foibles as well. Everybody's having the opportunity to express, whether it be with voice or it be other aspects of their body. The drawings pick up an object that represents something, so that all voices are being heard, figuratively or literally. And that also starts to set the tone that everybody is going to get a turn. Everybody is important in this group. Otherwise, they wouldn't be here if they weren't meant to be important. And I think people start to, because they've participated right at the beginning, they subconsciously expect that they're going to continue to participate, so that it isn't going to be a sit back and listen to somebody else talking on effectively a webinar.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, starting off with some kind of interactive check-in in that way is such a great way to set the tone that it's going to be a lean-in, hands-on, interactive experience all the way through. Alison, this has been just wonderful, and I feel like the people who get to experience your facilitation are so incredibly fortunate. What a masterful facilitator you are.
Thank you.
I'm really grateful that you are on the show, and especially knowing what time it is where you are in South Africa. Thank you for taking the time.
It's been a pleasure.
So let's see, where can people find you?
At canbedone.co.za.
And look what I have. Check down there. Canbedone.co.za for those who speak the Queen's English, or canbedone.co.za for those who speak Yankee English. Everybody go check out Alison's work. So every month for the past year, I have been running these monthly learning labs. They're these hour-long workshops, non-boring virtual meetings, learning labs. And guess what? I'm not going to be running them monthly anymore. This is the last one that I'll be running monthly. Now, I may run them again on a, periodic basis, but if you have been, I don't know when. So if you have been thinking to yourself, gee, I'd really like to try out one of Melissa's learning labs, now is your chance. The last monthly lab is coming up on August 18th. It's just an hour long, 11 a.m. Pacific time to 12 p.m. Pacific time. The theme this month for the very last monthly lab is curiosity. So I'm going to be sharing some hands-on activities very similar to the types of things that Alison has shared with us today, where you will get to actually experience them for yourself, all around the theme of curiosity. So come join the lab, and I do have a banner with more information. There we go. If you have not been to a lab before, you can come to this one for free by using the code FIRSTTIMER. It might be your last as well, since I don't know when I will be running these again. The URL is bit.ly/monthly lab, capital M, capital L. It is case sensitive, so make sure that you type that in correctly, and I hope to see you there. These are a lot of fun, and I'm on the platform Butter instead of Zoom. So if you haven't experienced that platform, come and check it out, because it's a fun platform, and it has some really cool features that I like. Some of the features I like better than Zoom, even though I do still use Zoom for a lot of things. So come to the lab on August 18th. So that is my promotion for that. All right. And next month, 2 weeks from now, on August 16th, the guest will be Nancy Weaver, who is another applied improvisation person. She applies communication sciences, analytics, and public health principles to promote positive parenting of young children and adolescents, whether it's encouraging nurturing relationships between caregivers and kids, or working with institutions and healthcare systems to adopt effective programs. Nancy advances strength-based messages that are easy to understand and are highly relevant to diverse audiences. And she has recently launched a program called Support Over Silence for kids to address public child mistreatment. So come join me again on August 16th for my next virtually inspired LinkedIn Live. All right. So that is that with the announcements. And I'm back here with Alison, and let me turn back on our display names. And Alison, thank you again for joining me. This has been so much fun. I really, really enjoyed not only the activities that you shared, but all of the thoughtfulness around why you do the activities and how they help, and the benefits of each of the activities. So I really appreciate all the thought and the care that you took into the choices of what you were sharing today. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. Thanks for the invitation to be here. I've loved it, and I think I might be joining you in your last learning lab.
It would be delightful to have you. Hope to see you there.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, everybody. See you next time. Bye. Thanks for watching. Please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and click the bell to get video updates. Thanks.